Hi everyone, it's nice to see you again. I hope you had a good Valentine's Day and that you're getting ready to play a lot of bridge. You might want to go to the ACBL website where you may have seen this video and download the notes for my topic. There's some hands on there and some information, and it might be good for you to have it with you while you're listening to the video. So put me on pause and go find those notes and download them. If for some reason you have trouble finding them, you can always email me at Patty@bridgewithpatty.com, Patty@bridgewithpatty.com, and I'll send you a copy as well. So today I'm going to talk about to bid or not to bid unusual to no trump. Kind of the idea, I'm sure most of y'all are familiar with unusual to no trump and the Michaels Q bid. And the idea behind both of them is a way to show two suited hands with good suits but weakish hands. The suits would typically be 5 and 5. You typically have a couple of honors in each of the suits and less than an opening hand. Now, it's true, some people play kind of fast and loose with what they are going to have in their suits. Some people have weaker suits, some people have stronger hands, but I think that agreement is pretty typical. And also that it be the two lowest unbid suits when you bid unusual to no trump. So for instance, if the auction went one heart and then I overcalled to no trump, one heart on my left as an opening bid, I overcalled to no trump, I would be showing specifically clubs and diamonds. And unusual to no trump, you always know what the two suits are that your opponent is showing when they bid to no trump. If a minor had been opened, then your partner would be showing hearts and the minor. So that's kind of the idea. I like very structured and very specific agreements about what partner is showing when they make these type of bids, these conventional bids. These are considered part of kind of the weak preemptive bids, the competitive bids, like a weak jump shift and that type of thing. That's kind of where they fall in with weak twos and preempts and those types of bids. And I'm pretty much a purist. I like mine to be very specific. But even I can recognize that with unusual to no trump, sometimes you need to stretch the envelope a little bit. And let's think about that for just a second. Why is unusual to no trump special? Well, if we have two suits and those two suits are the minor suits, then that means the opponents have major suits and they're going to probably be bidding their major suits, bidding and raising. So what happens is, because we have to bid a level higher than the opponents when they're bidding majors and we're bidding minors, if I just overcall one of my minors, then I might not ever get a chance to tell you about my second minor. I mean, just think about it. If the bidding went one spade and I bid two diamonds and it went two spades past three spades, I'd have to be bidding clubs at the 4 level. And that's sometimes very difficult to do, especially if we're vulnerable and not very comfortable. So the advantage to bidding unusual to no trump is that you get to show both of your suits at the same time and let partner know that there are two suits. And in competitive auctions, a lot of times you're not going to have the ability to bid that second suit. So that's one reason why we really want to embrace being a little bit more flexible with unusual to no trump. Now, having said that, there's some things that you need to consider. The vulnerability is one of them, and the level at which you're bidding. The suit quality and length. Your high card points, though that's probably the least important. If you're the second person to bid or the third or the fourth, I mean, if your partner's a past hand, has previously had an opportunity to bid and pass, it's quite a different situation than if your partner's never had a chance to bid yet. And the last one is really important. What do you have to gain? What do you expect to be your gain in this? Are you and partner really going to be able to play the hand out? Are you going to be able to compete? Are you going to be forcing the opponents to a level they wouldn't normally be at? Those are all the reasons that we bid on preemptive hands and to interfere with their auction. And if we're not accomplishing any of that, all we're doing is giving them information. So let's look at these as we go along, kind of bit by bit. And then, as I said, I've got some hands at the very end where I gave you hands and some auctions and a little tips about what I thought the point of the hand was. So vulnerability. It's difficult, like we said, sometimes to bid minor suits because of the level that we have to go to. Who wants to risk going to the 4 level, which is not even game, in a minor suit when we don't know if partner and I are going to have a fit? Sometimes that's just really, really hard to do. So now I've never told partner about my second suit if I overcalled instead of bidding unusual 2 no trump. If we're not vulnerable versus vulnerable opponents, it's even more important to tell my partner about my 2-suited hand, because if he has a fit for one of my suits, there's a chance that we can compete with them and sacrifice, take the bid away from them. If they're vulnerable and they make a game, bid and make a game, their score is going to be 600 and something. If we're not vulnerable, they would have to set us 3 tricks to make up for what they, for make up for their game. They'd have to set us 4 to get a good score. And if we're vulnerable and the opponents are not vulnerable, what am I gaining? What do I think is going to happen? We're vulnerable, they're not. If we have minor suits, we would have to bid to the 5 level to sacrifice over the opponent's game. All they would have to do was set us 2 tricks in order to beat what they were going to get for their game. Doubled vulnerable down to, that's 500 points. So when we are vulnerable and they are not, I want to be more cautious. Maybe I don't need to tell you about my 2-suited hand if it's close. Maybe this is not a good idea, because what do I expect that we're going to gain? Remember that every time you bid, you're telling them something. Suit quality and length. If my suits are really good suits, I'm going to want to tell you about them. The better my suits are, the safer we are. The more likely the opponents are to bid again than they are to double us. Think about it. When do you double people? You double them when you have trump tricks, right? So if my suits are really good and I bid unusual 2 no trump and my partner has a fit for one of those suits and bids, the chances of the opponents doubling us and setting us are less than that they'll go ahead and take another bid. So then we've accomplished our goal. We push them to a higher level, to the 5 level. Another thing to think about that is, what about those hands where you're 6 and 5? Especially if your 6-card suit is lower in rank. A lot of times you never get to bid that 5-card suit, right? If I have 5 diamonds and 6 clubs and it goes 1 spade and I bid 2 clubs, 2 spades, even if it goes pass. If I bid 3 diamonds now, my partner would have to bid 4 clubs to go back to my original suit. I need a much better hand to make bids like that. But if it goes 1 spade and I bid 2 no trump, right? And it goes 2 spades, pass, I can bid 3 clubs. What would partner know? Well, she already bid 2 no trump. She told me she had 5 clubs and 5 diamonds. And now she's bidding 3 clubs. Well, she must have had more than 5 clubs. So she must have 6 clubs and 5 diamonds. So by bidding unusual 2 no trump, I'm able, in some instances, not always, but some, I can go ahead and tell you about my 6-card suit. The only time I would probably bid my suits when I was 6 and 5 is if my suits were hearts and a minor. Okay, so it's gone 1 diamond. And I bid 2 no trump. Now I have hearts and clubs, right? Well, if I had 6 hearts and 5 clubs, I would probably just overcall hearts, because it's a major and I have 6 of my higher ranking suit. I can always come back if it even goes 2 diamonds or 3 diamonds, pass, 3, can't bid 3 clubs. I'd have to decide whether I wanted to bid my clubs or not. But I hate to give up on that 6-card major. I'd probably always overcall my 6-card major. Your high card points, well, the amount of high card points I have is not as important as where those high card points are. I would want my high card points concentrated in my 2 suits. I don't want to have a lot of my high cards in my short suits where they might become winners or might help us create winners. I want them in my suits. Excuse me, I kind of rephrased that wrong. I don't want my honor cards in my short suits where they might win tricks, but win tricks on defense, okay? When I bid unusual 2 no trump, I want the majority of my points to be concentrated in my 2 suits so that partner can accurately decide whether or not we need to be trying to take the bid away from our opponents, to sacrifice, or even sometimes to make. You know, face it, if I told you that I had 10 or 11 cards and 2 suits in my hand, you would expect most of my high cards to be with those 10 or 11 cards, not the 2 or 3 that I have in my side suits, right? Are you the second person to bid or the third or fourth? Well, if you're the third or fourth person to bid, it means that your partner had an opportunity to previously bid and did not. So they did not have an opening hand. What does that mean? Well, that means that if, depending on what my points are, the opponents probably have values. They're going to be bidding. It's not likely that partner and I can bid to make anything. We're probably bidding hoping that we can keep the opponents from making a game or something of that nature. Makes a huge difference if partner has already had an opportunity to bid and could not. Limits the amount of high card points in his hands, limits whether or not he has a long suit of his own. It's just different. And most important, what do you gain? Remember, every single time you bid, you tell the opponent something about your hand. So let's suppose I bid an unusual 2 no trump. They know I have 10 cards and 2 suits. They've got the contract. Well, they're looking at dummy. They're looking at their hand. And they know that I have 10 cards and 2 suits, and they know exactly which 2 suits those are. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what my partner has. The declarer is going to know within 1 or 2 cards what my partner's distribution is, and most of the time about their high card points as well. So you're giving away just a ton of information. It's not that you don't want to bid, but make sure that you're doing it for a reason. You know, making a bid just because it fits into those rules or whatever, or guidelines to what you could do, does not always mean it's going to be the right thing to do. You have to decide, and could partner and I sacrifice? Could partner and I push them up to a higher level? Could partner and I actually make something ourselves? And if the answer to those are kind of no, it's not worth it. Don't bid just to hear yourself bid, or because you're bored because it's been one of those days and you've had nothing all day long. All right? Everyone likes to bid. Just make sure that when you bid, that you have something that you can gain. Okay, so let's look at a couple of these hands. Don't know that I'll have a chance to go through all of them, but we'll look at a couple. I'm going to hold them up here in front. Of course, that's not the best way to do it. I hope you printed them out, right? So on this one, we're looking at the west hand. Excuse me, the north hand. North, south are vulnerable. East, west are not. Okay. And west opened 1 spade. Now you are 5 and 5 in diamonds and clubs. Your partner is a passed hand. You fit the criteria. You have king, jack, 5th of diamonds. You have ace, jack, 10, 5th of clubs. You could bid 2 no trump. But what really do you think that you are going to gain? North-south is vulnerable. Excuse me, east-west is not vulnerable. North-south is vulnerable. Do you really think that you and partner are going to push them up to the 4 level or something like that? Do you think you're going to take it away from them, that you're going to bid to the 5 level? Of course not. You know, all they'd have to do is set you 2 tricks. You'd go down 500. Partner's a passed hand. The chances of them having the kind of hand they would need to have to sacrifice over 4 spades to try and push the opponents up to 5 is not very good. I mean, they could just simply stop, double you, and take their 5 or 800 that way. Okay? So we're vulnerable. I don't think we have much to gain here. If the vulnerability had been reversed, if East-West had been vulnerable and you not, you might be able to make a case for it. You know that they have a big spade fit probably, right? You have a singleton. Your partner is a passed hand, but it's possible that partner might have something good in diamonds or clubs. But vulnerable, when you're vulnerable and they're not vulnerable, you don't have anything to gain. On hand 2, we're looking at the south hand. East-West is vulnerable, and East is open to diamond. Okay? You have a ton to gain on this hand. You know that they probably have a spade fit, right? 2 no trump might keep the opponents from bidding spades. You and partner might have a sacrifice. You might even actually have a game and be able to make it, which I think is pretty much the case on this hand. I think you do pretty well in hearts. So you stop them from bidding spades. You push the auction up higher. You and partner actually can find a fit, and you might be able to make it. No reason not to bid on this hand. This is a perfect hand to bid 2 no trump on. Number 4, we're looking at the west hand. East deals, north, south are the vulnerable people. Your partner has passed. This one is a perfect example of if you bid 2 clubs, if you overcall 2 clubs, you are never going to be able to talk about your diamonds. So you want to be able to bid 2 no trump here to let your partner know about your diamonds and clubs. And then after they bid 4 spades, with this vulnerability, us not vol and them vol, I would bid 5 clubs. Partner, I'm 6 and 5. I do not want to let them play 4 spades. Pick one of my suits. Let's do one more. Number 4. We're looking at the east hand here. North bid a heart. North, south are vulnerable. This is another hand I would bid on. I'm not as crazy about my hand on this one, but what I do know is this. My partner passed originally, so they couldn't open a week 2. They don't have a week 2 bid in spades. That means the opponents probably have a spade fit as well as their heart fit, because I only have 1 spade. So I think they have a double fit. 2 no trump takes up a ton of bidding room. There's some things that you can learn. One of them is called unusual over unusual that can help you in these competitive auctions. How to bid even after they've bid an unusual 2 no trump to let your partner know what your hand is. But not everybody knows it, and quite frankly, on the hand that South has, he might not choose to do that anyway. He has a simple heart raise. Even though North always intends to bid game, they are not ever going to find their spade fit. They can actually make, I think, 6 hearts because they can finesse the heart, and then they'll have 6 spade tricks, 5 heart tricks, and 2 aces. So heck, they might even make 7, right? It's going to be either make 5 or 7. And one of the things to think about too is that little queen of hearts you have in your hand. If you bid 2 no trump and they know you have 10 cards in the minor suits, they're very unlikely to finesse you for the queen of hearts. They're much more likely to think your partner has it. So there's 4 more hands within that set. I hope you download them and take a look at them. But kind of my goal was a couple of things. One was to tell you not to bid just for fun, right? We're not going to do that. But also, even though you have agreements and you're a conservative player, there are situations that occur in the bidding because of the vulnerability or how the auction's gone up to that point that you should take into account and sometimes adjust your rigidity. I don't know if that's a good word, but not be so by the book, by the letter of what it is you do. Part of that, of course, is learning some judgment. But the other side of that also is don't get so unconcerned about what partner's expecting you to have and what you think you ought to have that you're bidding for no reason. Every time you bid, you give the opponents information. Not saying don't bid. I'm just saying make sure that you gain by it. I hope you enjoyed this. This is a little bit different than I normally do, but I thought it was worth talking about, and I'm glad that you came by. If you couldn't find the handout, just send me an email, and I'll get one to you. Oh, by the way, this is Patty. I forgot to introduce myself at the very beginning, but maybe you've seen me enough times so far. So anyway, hope you play well this week. I hope you have a good time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.